Have come up Mayor John Fernandez and Monroe County Commissioner Iris Kiesling.
I'll let the mayor start.
It's sort of scary. Iris and I go way back, but having to follow an act where you're getting all these fun gifts and everyone's excited and that kind of thing, and then we're going to be followed by a stand-up comedian. I'm not real sure what Iris and I can do here to keep people engaged, but anyway, we do want, I think, collectively thank everyone who participates in this conference every year. It's a very important event, I think, for Bloomington as we reemphasize how important parenting is, how important our children are, and how it all relates to being a community. The co-chairs and the agencies involved deserve a great deal of credit for the quality of the program that they put together this year. There's a lot going on in this field, and there's a lot going on at the city. Iris was on the council last year when we initiated some of the, I guess, fine-tuning, if you will, of our community and family resources activities. And we have a number of priorities that we're working on. Certainly child care continues to be a high priority at the city, but also capacity building and providing resources for other agencies. And in many ways, that's sort of what this conference is about, helping us build capacity, learning more, and having resources to help us in the areas of parenting. So again, I just want to thank everyone for being here. It's a real testament, I think, to the kind of community we live in, that all of us would come on a day like this and take the time to learn and participate in this event. And now, Iris.
Thank you. I now wear a Monroe County hat, although I still wear a hat in the city, too, because I live in the city. I do want to thank everybody who's been involved with this, Step Ahead and all the people. If you see people running around here like you did a few minutes ago, those are the people who've been involved since the very beginning, 3 years ago when we started. And I'm very pleased that this is happening, and I hope we continue to happen, because as we read this, I wrote a proclamation from the county commissioners and the mayor. I'd like to read that to you in a minute, but I think that there's a book that I like a lot, Wonderful Ways to Love a Child. And there's one phrase in here that really, this has lots of little goodies in it, so if you have a chance to pick it up sometime, it's great. Parenting is a two-way street. As you take them by the hand, they will take you by the heart. I think there's a lot to be said about that, because it's difficult times we have. Every child still has something to offer us, and we do too. Don't forget to hug the big childs too, the parents and the older children, because I was just thinking coming over here, it took a long time for my husband and my son to hug each other, but I tell you, they do it now. He's 30 now, so, and I think it makes a big difference. And they're almost 10,000 miles away, and I see it when I'm with them when they do that. It's very, very important, and it doesn't have to be, you know, guys or gals that just give a person that hug, because it's so important. A proclamation and celebration of parenting. Some of us are parents, some of us are not, but some of us are grandparents. Though I didn't talk about grandparents, but please take that in consideration, that that's also part of it. Whereas parents provide our community's children with the start of life, whereas parents are responsible to be the first teachers of our children, whereas parents are the most important people in our children's lives, whereas parents provide our children with the background to a fruitful and successful adulthood, whereas parents try to protect their children from the pain and injustices of life, whereas parents are asked to be exemplary adults, since children emulate the most important adults in their lives, whereas children are asked to balance many roles in their lives, leading to stressful situations, whereas children are the most important people in our community, and whereas children are our future. Now therefore be it resolved that the community celebrate the jobs and joys of parenting, and that where we hereby proclaim Saturday, September 13th, 1997, a day to stress the importance of the value of parenting as essential to the continued quality of life in our community, and urge all citizens to support the parents in their most important role as parents. And Wendy and Liz, why don't you come up here and as co-chairs of this particular event and take that from us. Yeah. Thanks for having us.
As children growing up, I'm sure we can all remember the degree to which our parents were so appreciative of our sense of humor. As children, you will remember that our efforts to make them laugh and make them smile were met with such phrases as, "Your face is going to freeze like that." And the stories that we told them to make them happy, to make them share our world, were met with, "Your nose is going to grow if you lie to me." And when we played with our siblings to have fun, they said, "If you hadn't been acting like a bunch of wild Indians, you never would have hurt yourself like this." So, things were a little different then. I think now, as we watch our children do those things, we tend to laugh, or at least we catch ourselves with, "Your face is not going to freeze like that, but I'm tempted to say that." So humor has a place in what we're doing today. And as I introduce our speaker, Danny Peterson, I'd like to tell you a little bit about his history. He was a stand-up comedian until he had children. He will be the first to tell you that his life is about his children who are grown. I heard many wonderful stories about them, and certainly the big joy in his life now is his 4-year-old. In terms of big moments in history, second to having his children and since becoming a parenting person from Escanaba, Michigan, which, by the way, is in UP.
I need a ride, by the way.
Escanaba, for those of you who wonder, is cold, and it is 17,000 square miles with only 300,000 people. If you can imagine, 17,000 miles. One of the stories I most enjoyed was Danny telling me about his presentation as the fourth speaker for Hillary Clinton. And I enjoy very much him telling stories on himself. And when he was introduced to her in his moment of nervousness, which I interpret as self-confidence, he shook her hand and said, "Thank you, I am so glad I could be here." And after the conversation and after his presentation, when she came up to him and asked him if she would write some material for her, he said, "I'll see what I can do." And she laughed. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Danny Peterson, who I'm sure will make you laugh as much as he has made us laugh these last 2 days. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I think we're going to have a great time here. I got to tell you, these folks have been so wonderful. I flew in yesterday and they picked me up at the airport. They immediately gave me a car. They gave me a house, and they said, "This is your house. That's your food. You have 2 cats. We have no idea what their names are. just go with it." So I figure they're either the nicest folks I've ever worked with, or I accidentally stumbled into the witness protection program. I don't know which, but you've been terrific. The fact that all of you are here today is just a wonderful testimony about yourselves. I would just take half a minute for all the fine folks, anyone who's ever been involved in planning something like this really realizes what goes into it. So if you just take a second and give a nice, strong round of applause to your planning committee. It's a beautiful place. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm going to the football game tonight. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be wonderful. I am honored here because parenting, as we talk about celebrating parenting, I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think too often we get caught into the details of parenting where we don't take time to do that. And I'm honored further to be among dignitaries such as the mayor and a county commissioner. But as Michelle mentioned, I opened for Hillary Clinton not too long ago at a children's conference, and I was very proud of that. Regardless of your politics, that's quite an honor. And people would ask me, listen, are you nervous about opening for the First Lady? And I said, no, not really. I once performed for the Queen. Of course, it was homecoming, but, I'm working on it. But it's funny, though, when you're up on stage with them, they're very serious about what they do, and they have to be, and they should be. But they issue you a little name tag that goes on your sport coat or on your dress or whatever, and mine just said G3. I have no idea what that means. But I was so proud to be up there and part of this that I was strutting around a little bit thinking, yeah, this is pretty neat. And at one point, a Secret Service guy comes over to me and says, excuse me, sir, you're a G3? And I said, why, yes, I am. He said, you're certain you're a G3? I said, yes, I am. And he said, well, don't just stand there, sweep something. So apparently not a real high security clearance. So it's kind of... I mentioned how wonderful the committee has been to me, and I just really appreciate that. I never know what kind of hotel I'm going to be put into or what the arrangements are going to be. And I had a really bad one last week. I don't want to mention any names, but you know you're in a bad hotel when you walk into the bathroom, that little strip of paper across the toilet seat reads, for your protection, I'd hold it in. So that's the mark of a bad hotel. I get to stay at the nice big urban hotels a lot of times, and of course we're from a very rural area, and you can always spot a native Yooper. That's what they call us from the Upper Peninsula. Native Yoopers are kind of fascinated with things like elevators. You'll spot us when we're staying at these big hotels because we'll be the ones going up and down on the elevator. We don't have many of these, so for us, this is not floor-to-floor transportation. This is pretty much a carnival ride, ladies and gentlemen. So. But we have, in 17,000 square miles in the Upper Peninsula, one escalator. And it had, I had understood, become somewhat of a tourist attraction. So, so the next time I was in the city in Marquette, I went in there, went over to the hospital where the escalator is located, went over to the escalator, bought a ticket. Sure enough. It's gotten to be sort of a ride, people just showing up to ride that ride there. It's gotten so bad they've had to install one of those yardsticks. You must be this tall to ride this ride. It's kind of scary. But the UP is a wonderful place, and people have a terrific sense of humor about themselves. But people, as I travel, will always say this, and I'm sure, Gene, you're from Escanaba. You get this too. Oh, I love the UP. I've been there, but I could never live there. It's far too cold. It's far too cold. My response is this: I love living in a place where 7 months out of the year it is so freezing cold you can walk out your back door, clean up after the dog with a 7-iron. So, it works. I'm not popular with the neighbors, but my golf game's getting better all the time, so it's, it works out pretty good. I'm active in my community. Big Brothers, familiar with this program? Well, it's a wonderful program. You can applaud if you like. I'm staying with this program, I'll tell you. Why should I leave it? Once a week, a 70-year-old guy comes, picks me up, takes me out for ice cream. Man, you just can't. You can't beat that. I have not spent this much time in a school on a Saturday since, detention, actually. So it's wonderful to see this kind of crowd. It really is. In school, I don't think I was serious enough about my education. I remember once after a true and false test in government, I was sitting there flipping a coin. And the teacher came over to me and said, Danny, you're not guessing the answers on the true and false test there with the coin, are you? And I said, oh, no, I already did that. I'm just checking them. So it's off to the principal's office. So, when you're good at art or whatever, they make sure you're involved in art class, or if you're good at music, you go to orchestra or chorus or band or something. If you're good at comedy, you go pretty much to the principal's office. That's where you spend a lot of time, and I did. So, I'm a member of the National Speakers Association. Are you familiar with this group at all? It's very prestigious among speaking circles, and April 1st of every year they come out with their top rankings of comedians and humorists all across the country. And I'm very proud to announce here that as of April 1st, 1997, I, nationwide, am now rated in the top 20,000. So it's, I'm working on it. So, how many people saw me on Star Search? Anybody? Okay, all right. Well, it's just as well, because it didn't go nearly as well as I had hoped. Actually, one judge gave me 1 star and the other 3 mooned me. So that's not a good thing. So I was married very young. Actually, I was married as a junior in high school. I was. She was 26. I was 27. We were not good students. I told you that part. So, no, I was married very young. We were very, very young. And I remember the first time my wife loves to cook, and she made that first big meal for the family. You know, it was wonderful. It's pot roast. You know, took like hours and hours and hours. Of course, she was very young. She's working on that easy bake oven. So it's like, honey, maybe a 60-watt light bulb. Let's move it along here, okay? So. But we've had fun. We've had a lot of fun, and parenting is a great thing to celebrate. We're going to talk a little bit about surviving in our families. And to qualify for this part of my presentation, you need to fit into one of three categories. If you do not fit into one of these three categories, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, okay? So I'm running the show here, ladies and gentlemen. So first category is, how many people in this room either paid or volunteer work with children? How many? Quite a few. I expected that. Okay. Second category, how many people in this room have children? Okay. There's a couple of hands that have not gone up, and if you don't fit into this third category, you're going to have to ask. I'm just going to have to ask you to leave. So, third category, how many people in this room once were children? You know, for some of us, you know, we get some distance in between that, and it's so important to keep in touch with humor and laughter, because I don't know if you realize it or not, but we're practically born laughing. By the time we're 9 weeks old, we've all had a good laugh, and it's not all from gas. So, actually, some of it is, but some of mine still is, actually, as it turns out. So it's but by the time you're 10 months old, you recognize funny pictures and expressions. Now, every parent in the room that has a 10-month-old or has had a 10-month-old has never sat a baby down to explain the whole concept of humor and laughter. It's a natural gift that we're given. By the time we're a toddler, this, if we're not careful, is the peak of our laughter career on this planet, ladies and gentlemen. It really is. The average toddler laughs between 250 and 500 times per day. And that's in a wet diaper. You think we could do better? I mean, so if they can do it, we can do it. I just know. The average adult laughs 15 times a day. So we go from a minimum of 250 to 15. What happens? Well, what happens is we let stress and a lot of other things take some of the fun out. So I hope that by the time I'm done here today, we'll put some back in. There's a real important thing about attitude, and let me ask you this just to get a feel for this. How many people, when they first wake up in the morning, first thing you do is smile, just to get it over with? Anybody? There, that's out of the way. How many people, when you first get up, you exercise like I do? 1, 2, 1, 2, now the other eyelid. Kind of a slow mover in the morning. So it's an important thing, though, as we look at ourselves as parents, and as we look to celebrate parenting, that we stay connected with our kids, because we are the prime example that they look to. We are the number one example. How we handle the things that come our way makes a big difference, and they will see that, and you will teach them. Whether you realize it at the moment or not, you will teach them. And it's important then to keep your perspective on things. There's no adage in humor that says trouble plus time equals funny. Trouble plus time equals funny. Something that goes wrong plus some time. I mean, if you think about it, if you think about some of your favorite stories that you tell people, oftentimes they involve things that went terribly wrong, right? Think about it. And we're going to talk a little bit in my workshop about some of those things. But trouble plus time equals funny. Let me tell you a short story about this woman. I was in one of my workshops, and she said that, now I would say she was in her mid-20s or so. No longer lived at home. She was home visiting her mother, though, one evening. And her father was off. He was a sales rep. So her and her mother were sitting there having a nice chat, and Mom had gotten dressed in her a nightgown and her bathrobe, and they were sitting there chatting, and all of a sudden Mom looked at her watch and said, "Oh my God, it's 10 o'clock. I forgot to close the garage door. You know your dad gets mad if I don't close that garage door." So Mom goes off to close the garage door, and the daughter's sitting there thinking, well, maybe I should have went to help. You know, they've had problems with that garage door. And so she sits there a few minutes, and Mom doesn't come back. And Mom had gone off, and they had installed one of these little button deals, you know, to bring the door down. And Mom had pressed the button just as she had planned. The door came down, and for some reason, shot straight back up. In the travels, it picked up her robe and her nightgown and pulled them over her head. Okay, so she's in a tough kind of environment there, you know what I'm saying? And her pleas for help are going unmet because the fabric is basically muffling her cries for help. So her daughter finally gets there, finds her in this predicament. They get off the hook, and she goes, Mom is devastated. My God, I can't believe this. I'm out there for 5 minutes like this. So she's very upset. The daughter says, listen, Mom, I'll tell you what I'll do. Since you're upset, I'll stay over. We'll make a little sleepover, and I'll go home in the morning. No big deal. So in the morning, Mom is making little joking references to this garage door incident. And the daughter says, well, you know, Mom, I think you're fine. I'm going to head for home. And Mom says, well, I'll tell you, I'll walk you out to your car. So they proceed to walk out to the car, and there in the yard is the next door neighbor. And he says to Mom, he says, why, Mrs. Evans, haven't been seeing much of you lately. And she turns to the neighbor and says, well, you had your chance. So now, if you think about what changed, at one point she was very upset with this event, right? And the very next day, she's laughing about the very same event. Trouble plus time equals funny. It took a little time for her to realize this is not a fatal thing. I'm going to survive this. Yes, it was unpleasant, but it's one of those things that happens. Trouble plus time equals funny. The only part of that equation that we really can play with is the time part. How quickly we are able to laugh at things that go wrong really make a difference. Let me give you one other example. I was driving from downstate Michigan, Lansing. Some of you may be familiar with it. And it was a nice, warm summer day, and my father always told me, Dan, have goals in your life. Have goals in your life. And my goal that particular day was to make it from Lansing to the Mackinac Bridge, where I could stop at the McDonald's and use the facilities. So not exactly the kind of goal my dad had in mind, I don't think, but my goal nonetheless. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I don't like stopping at regular service stations. I finally figured out why they lock the doors on the restrooms. That's to keep people from wandering in there and cleaning them pretty much, if you know what I mean. So, and then there's always like a log attached to this key. You know, you go and get that. What is that about? I mean, do people actually take these keys from service stations, you know? I've got the key to the restroom at the Zephyr. You know, let's party. Okay, all right, everybody. And anyway, I'm driving, very warm day. I finally make it to St. Ignace. I go into McDonald's, and it's loaded with people. And I thought, am I going to be cool, eat my food, and a little later on I'll drift off and use the restroom? I thought, no way. I shot off for the bathroom. I met my goal, I'm happy to say. But afterwards, I went over to comb my hair in the mirror, and without realizing it, the counter in front of me is loaded with water, okay? Absolutely loaded with water. Now, by the time I realized what is going on here, my nice summer khaki pants had soaked up about 1.5 gallons, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, you get that instant bolt of fear, you know, I'm really going to be embarrassed, you know, you sort of relive the whole thing. People saw me dart off to the toilet, for God's sake, you know. I know I'm going to walk out and someone's going to say, see, Edward, I told you wouldn't make it, you know. So I thought, wait, now, just calm down. There's got to be a way to resolve this little problem, right? There's got to be a way. So I thought of two possible solutions. One was to go out and table by table explain myself. You know, excuse me, ma'am, if you could just put the fries down, I need to talk to you a minute. And I thought, no, that wouldn't be appropriate. So the only other option that I felt I had was, of course, the hot hand blower. So I stood there 5 or 6 minutes going, hey, how you doing? All right, have a good day. See you later. Got in my car, laughed my butt off all the way home. So. But I tell you that story to illustrate something, and that is, could I have had a completely different reaction to the very same event? Could I have gotten angry? Absolutely. Could I have said, where are these people that take care of this place? Why is this like this? Or, I'm a nice enough guy, why do things like this go wrong? Well, the fact is that life deals us some of these things, and they've happened to every one of us. And they will continue to happen because it's part of life. So that reaction, there's an event plus a reaction is an outcome. The reaction is our choice. We can get upset, we can laugh it off, we can move on. It's up to us, but we choose. How many in this room have ever gotten crabby? Okay. How many generally annoyed right now? You know, according to research, 3% of you, no matter what I say or do here this afternoon, will hate me. And I think at this point you know who you are. So it's no showing of hands. Thank you very much, bud. I want to just take a few minutes and tell you how crabbiness works, because as we survive in our families, one of the primary things we need to deal with on a day-to-day basis is crabbiness. Crabbiness affects our parenting skills. It really does. I'll show you how crabbiness works. I want you to imagine that you had some little irritation. And I want you to imagine that your hand represents that little irritation. I'd like you to take that little irritation, that little problem, and place it on your nose, like this, okay? Please. Help me out here. Thank you. I want to ask you a question about that little irritation. How big does that little problem look to you right now? It's kind of large, isn't it? It's kind of hard to see around it, kind of hard to deal with it. Well, let me ask you this question. When we take a little irritation like that and we put it right here, who are we thinking about? Who are we thinking about? Ourselves. We're thinking about ourselves. We're never at our best when we're thinking solely about ourselves. As a parent, at work, I don't care, wherever you are, you will never be at your best when you think solely about yourself. Can you see around? Can you see what's happening with your children? Can you see what's happening with the people that you work with to care for those children? You really can't. So we need to deal with that. And what humor and laughter does is it takes those little irritations, puts them back here. Now we can see around it. Now we can deal with the rest of our world. We may still have to deal with that little irritation, but now we have some perspective. See if this works for you. There's an interesting transformation that I've noticed in my years that happens when you get crabby. When you get really crabby, doesn't everyone in your world become an idiot? Think about think about this. When you're crabby, doesn't everyone seem like an idiot? Everyone seems ruder, and I mean the worst drivers, everybody, okay? The reason that happens is because that's sort of what we're looking for when we're crabby. Whether we like to admit it or not, crabbiness is actually a form of self-pity. We're thinking about ourselves, we're a little sorry for ourselves, you know. We can get out of this. We can deal with it, but it is our choice to make. As we celebrate parenting, we celebrate good parenting skills. And that's what you folks are here to do. And I think it's so important to keep your perspective. I want to share with you a letter that better illustrates perspective than anything I've ever seen. And it goes like this. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm sorry for not writing, but hope you will understand. First, sit down before you read further. I'm doing much better now after recovering from the concussion I received jumping from my dorm room window when it caught fire last month. I can almost see normally thanks to the loving care of Norman, the boy who pulled me from the flames. He more than saved me, he's become my whole life. I've been living with him since the fire. We're planning on getting married. We haven't got a date yet, but plan to have one soon before my pregnancy shows. Yes, I'm pregnant. I know you'd be excited for me, knowing how much you want to be grandparents. We'd be married right now if it weren't for Norman's infection. That prevented him from passing the premarital blood test. I caught it from him, but doctors are positive it won't affect the child. Though poorly mannered, I know your often expressed tolerance will make it easy for you to accept Norman. Signed, your loving daughter, Susie. And then there's a fairly important P.S. here. It goes like this. P.S. There was no fire, I have no concussion, I'm not pregnant, and there is no Norman. However, I'm getting a D in biology and wanted you to see the grade in its proper perspective. Hello! How do you think Mom and Dad feel about the D in biology? Hey! This is not a problem. Oh, she's a great kid. Woo! Work a little harder. We can deal with this. As bad as things might feel at a given moment, they can always be worse. We need to really put things into perspective as parents, as people that care about children and want to sincerely do the best job that we can for them. It's important to keep our perspective. And if you ever do get in a jam, write a letter like this. Then you're off the hook. It's guaranteed. So, our life is really sort of like a movie, and movies take an angle. They can be a comedy, they can be a tragedy, they can be a melodrama, but we make a choice. We make some choices. And as we deal with the pain, humor and laughter are great tools. They are shock absorbers. And it helps us to retain energy. If we can keep our energy up, then when we really need when things really do get tough and serious for us, we'll have a reserve. If we give it to every little thing that comes our way, we are wasting our energy. You know, you'll hear people throughout life say, you know, I'll be happy when I get married. I'll be happy when I get divorced. I'll be, you know, like life is some big milestone sort of thing. Our life is composed of small moments. That's what our life is about. And if we make the best of those small moments, your life will be richer, and your children will be richer for it. I want to share with you some other things. And do we have a few minutes? Okay. These are what I refer to as lifters, because a lot of people will come up to me afterwards and say, you know, I don't tell jokes well, I don't do stories well. Well, lifters are things that you basically find funny and you take them and you share them with somebody else. They're just things like that, in newspaper columns, whatever they are. These are actual lifters from church bulletins. And again, humor is about how we listen, how we react with our world. Listen to these. Tuesday at 4 p.m. there will be an ice cream social. All ladies giving milk, please come early. Okay, well, anything for the church, pretty much. That's the service will close with little drops of water. One of the ladies will start quietly, and the rest of the congregation will join in. Very nice. Thursday at 5 p.m. there will be a meeting of the Little Mothers Club. All those wishing to become little mothers will please meet the minister in his study. The ladies of the church have cast off clothing of every kind, and they may be seen in the church basement on Friday afternoon. Who writes this stuff? You know, it's This one's kind of scary for all of you who have adolescents at home. The young adults will host a bean and taco supper on Saturday evening. Special music will follow. I'm thinking, yeah, pretty much. And this one's pretty scary. Remember, this Thursday is Ash Wednesday. I have no idea what that means. You know, if you want to bring more humor into your life, you have to be a trained observer. It takes a matter of discipline and looking for all the wonderful things that are out there. We have wonderful things in this world. We have wonderful people in this world. Our children are wonderful. It's what we focus on. If I ask you to look around the room and see all the blue in this room, what you would do is you'd look around and you'd find more blue in this room than you noticed when you first came in. We make a choice on what we focus on. If we focus on good things and positive things, our world will be a lot better for it. Your children will be a lot happier. And frankly, from a selfish standpoint, they'll be a lot easier to raise. So that's not a bad thing either. Listen, I want to share with you just a few more things. These are actual excuses that parents, like all of us, actually sent off with their children to school. Please excuse John for being absent on January 29th, 30th, 31st, 32nd, and 33rd. Wow. That's a tough week, you know what I mean? It's, My son is under doctor's care and should not take gym today. Please execute him. Wow. This is one of those notes you would never understand. I don't care how long you work for the school system. Please excuse Tom for being absent yesterday. He had diarrhea and his boots leaked. I don't even want to know. Who wants to know that? And here's one of those people that gives you far too much detail you really don't need, okay? It goes like this. Mary Ann was absent because she had a fever, headache, stomach ache, and sore throat. Her sister was also sick, fever, sore throat. Her brother was also sick, a low-grade fever, and ached everywhere. I wasn't the best either. I had a sore throat and fever. There must be something going around because even her father got hot last night. So I mean, I just... What is that about? I don't even want to know. We want to be good observers, you know, everywhere in our world because we can just bring more humor and laughter. Life can be a whole lot more fun. For example, I noticed a kind of a sad lost and found ad in our paper just last week. It said, lost, one small apricot-colored poodle, neutered, like one of the family. I thought my dad was tough. Holy man, that's just, it's got to be a small family, I'm thinking, you know, so. You know, there are some other benefits, and it's another workshop entirely, but there are, just to sum it up, there are some health benefits that we share. And humor is a gift that we're given. Just as I started this presentation off, you know, we're given, as children, this great tool. And if we allow it to, it will slip away on us. We need to hold on to that. That's important. But some of the health benefits, according to research, people who have a well-developed sense of humor are better looking, more successful, and have superior bowel movements. So that's actual research, ladies and gentlemen. They have no solid evidence on which to go on, but gives a whole new meaning to the old term, he's a regular guy, though, doesn't it really, if you think about it? So, how many people have ever read anything by Norman Cousins? Wow, that's great. Norman was a wonderful author and had a wonderful outlook that he took to life. And for the last, I think, about 18 years of his life, he suffered from a disease which I would have to be a doctor to be able to explain to you. But he had to, among other things, check himself into a hospital one weekend every other week. And one day he was laying in the hospital bed, and he felt a little sorry for himself. You know, he was doing one of these things. He was thinking about that, and he thought, you know, I'm just going to stop here. I'm going to stop this. He had just finished his breakfast, and he decides to play a little practical joke on this nurse he had gotten to know quite well. And he knew the routine. Right after breakfast, in she came with a little urine cup, and she set it on his tray. Said, Norman, it's time for the urinalysis. So he said, fine. She went off. Now, Norman takes the little urinalysis cup and takes a little leftover apple juice from breakfast, pours it into the cup, and sets it there. A few minutes later, the nurse comes back, picks it up, starts walking away, and says, why, Norman, we're a little dark and cloudy here today, aren't we? And he says, oh, do you think so? Let me have that. I'll run it through again. Nurse quit, by the way. Very unfortunate. So, no. But he took a situation, and he played with it. If we're creative about it, we can play with those little things, that little bit of pain that comes our way. You know, we have to get through life, and we have to help our children. And as we celebrate parenting, it's important to keep your perspective. Parenting is hard work. It is hard work, but it can be so enjoyable and so rewarding. It's so important to keep your perspective and to keep your attitude in check. If you're looking at your children and they reflect to you, and you're not happy with what you see, you better check yourself first. So I want to end here today by telling you one of the most embarrassing stories I've ever been told in any of my seminars. And it was from a woman that worked for Dow Chemical Company. She was having a very bad day, she was crabby. And everything seemed to be going wrong. And that's what happens when you get crabby, right? Because you're not focusing, you're not thinking straight. So she's running around trying to get ready for work, and her husband, to top this off, had the day off. And at every turn met her and was teasing her, getting in her way, and she's like, just let me go, okay? So at one point, she's ready to go, and except for her dress, she said, honey, would you zip up the back of my dress here so I can get going? And he comes over, and he thinks he's going to be cute. Not good timing on his part. Zips it up, zip, 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 zip. It's like, no, leave it, okay? Let me go. You know, she goes off, has 8 hours of miserable work, comes back, happens to notice her husband is under the car in the driveway changing the oil. And she thinks revenge would be awfully sweet here. You know that? So she very quietly tiptoes up next to him, grabs hold of his fly and goes zip, 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 zip. Runs through the house laughing hysterically till she gets to the kitchen where there at the kitchen table is sitting her husband. You know. A little embarrassed, do you think? Oh, yes, indeed. And she's like, oh my God, what are you doing? You zip, zip in. Oh. And he said, my God, that's Jerry, the next door neighbor. You know, I think we best go explain this, you know. So they go out, and there is Jerry, still under the car where she had left him. He hadn't moved because Jerry had knocked himself out on the underside of the car. So it's, be careful as you seek your revenge. So I'd like you to rise right now if you're able. Would you rise, please? You're going to be going off to workshops when I'm done here. I'd like you to do a little oath with me. I'd like you to raise your right hand. And with your left hand, I'd like you to reach out and hold somebody else's earlobe. Gently, gently. Just reach out. Go ahead. Get hold of an earlobe. With your other hand, hold somebody else's earlobe. No pinching, no pinching. Everybody have an earlobe? No, just one. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Starting right now, I will. Find more laughter and play. In my life. I will take what I do seriously. But I will refuse to take myself seriously. So help me, Robin Williams. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day. Thank you very much.